can fly like a bird, like a bird on the wind, with such a dignified grace. By those lines on your face, you tell us your story, and that's the way it should be with your long history, your own power and glory. Everybody would stop and listen, pay attention in case they're missing advice and words of wisdom, hanging on every word you say. Now you can fly like a bird, like a bird on the wind. And now you can be with your friends in a time never ends. Have a beer, have a joke or two, flying high in the sky, where your teardrops can dry. There we will think of you. Everybody should stop and listen, pay attention.
The Jim and Terry Show with another installment without my good friend Jim at the helm. He is still recovering from his cold. Jim, a shout out to you. Stay well. Drink something, lots of fluid, and get better soon. The Jim and Terry Show, talking about all things historic. Yeah, the opening song with Keith singing a eulogy. Yeah, that's a eulogy. It's called Fly, and it's dedicated to his brother-in-law, who passed away, now it's a few months ago. But the song was created as an homage, a eulogy to celebrate the life of RAF veteran. The stories of old need to be retold. And I'm mindful as we celebrate this year, I think the 80th memorial of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, World War II, Polish occupation by Nazis. I'm reminded of history and the value of history, the value of reciting. I have mentioned on occasion that I follow a number of people on Twitter. My interest in Twitter is not to post things so much as to read and try to understand. So I follow the Holocaust Memorial Society, and especially the Auschwitz Memorial. They are the ones that have been publishing these installments where they pair a photograph, black and white, of the men, the women, the children, their shoes, their clothing, their members, their personal artifacts that were gathered, the records. And it just breaks my heart every time I see a posting and read the stories of what were these people all about before they were rounded up. Yeah, special operations rounded them up, and what happened to them? Put in concentration camps, lives snuffed out in grotesque fashion. Well, that is what Putin's all about, and this is maybe an anti-Putin rant again. Stop your shooting, Mr. Putin, end the war like that, and get the heck out of Ukraine before there's more suffering. Putin is already being alleged to be a war criminal, and if he lands in a country that has a treaty agreement, an extradition treaty agreement, he will be rounded up and brought before The Hague for a criminal war crimes tribunal. And maybe that marks the end of his significance. Maybe that marks the end of the relevance of Russia in modern society. I don't know. I certainly enjoy Russian culture and Russian literature. My wife is a fan of Russian narrative. And Dostoevsky, of course, remains a premier voice of Russia. So literature, poetry, music. It's all important, and you can't wipe that stuff out. And that goes true for Ukraine. So Putin, whatever your hopes of with your denazification, if it's to eradicate all Ukrainian culture, all Ukrainian music, Ukrainian storytelling, Ukrainian books, literature, history, it won't happen. Just like losing the war in Ukraine or just packing up and leaving would not cause Russia to lose its historic view of music, culture, history. There are good things to be had when we live with each other peacefully. When you try to blow each other up, that's another question. We had a podcast talking about the abyss that we all stare down because Putin still has a button under his finger ready to push. At least that's what he says. Time to call your bluff, Putin, because it would be truly catastrophic for everybody. And that's the abyss that we are all living under. The sword of Damocles is another way of looking at it. The impending doom. But rational voices through diplomacy need to prevail everywhere in the world, where things that are angry voices, where voices that are victimized and tyrannized, I think terrorized, maybe they need to be listened to more and maybe injected somewhere into the conversation of settlements and how things wrap up. Certainly things will not wrap up without some accounting. And as we learn our lessons from World War II, we need to see what way they inform our path forward for the end of this conflagration. And I think there are some lessons to be had for sure. One is that peace comes with a cost, and I don't want it to be the cost of Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of Britain, flying home to London after meeting with Hitler and doing his deal with the devil and waving a piece of paper that's not worth the ink that was written upon its surface. Peace in our time? No, not peace at any price. There is a price, and the price has to be paid by the ones who initiated the conflict. In World War I, it was Germany and its allies. In World War II, it's Germany and its allies. In World War III, is that what we call this now? It's Putin and his allies who need to bear the cost of rebuilding Ukraine. Can't get away with starting a war and then walk away and say, okay, I'm ready to stop fighting now. Yeah, how many casualties later? How many destroyed towns, villages, cities later? The cost is in the trillions. Who's going to pay for that? Well, I, for one, say grab some oligarch money, grab some oligarch resources, sell them off, and use the money and the proceeds to rebuild Ukraine. I also say there should be no ability to travel for those, what do they call them, the royal families, the oligarchs and their cronies. Why are they gallivanting around Europe free of charge? Well, war is being waged in Ukraine. They should have a surcharge put on everything that they do. You can't leave the country, you can't tour the world as if nothing is happening. Your country's at war. And it's going to cost you an extra, what, 1,000 euros to travel out of your country? I don't care what the price is, but there is a price to be paid. And it's not Ukraine that should be paying these things. It is the ones who are the aggressors. In this case, Putin and his cronies, the enablers of this thing, the advisors who have countenanced all the war criminal activities, the butcherings, the raping and pillaging. We use that word glibly sometimes to just talk about what armies do. But raping and pillaging, torturing, these are war crimes now, and we have rules and regulations for the conduct of war, and they need to be followed. Or Putin, you're going to be put on trial at The Hague. And like the Nazis after World War II, the Nuremberg trials are waiting for you. Best to get your house in order before things look a little dark. For you, for your cronies, for your enablers, for Russia. The economic consequences for Russia are tallying. They're getting to be quite sizable now. Will Russia recover? It's to the world's benefit that we have a stable Russian economy. we had a chance when the wall went down to allow a capitalist system and democracy to take root. But where it's not natural, where it doesn't come from the people, where it is forced from above, democracy seldom takes root. And that's a lesson for everyone. Don't force people into decisions, but show them that democracy and capitalism can work for the betterment of all people. Globalist? Globalist, since when did globalist become a bad word? Since when did woke become a bad word? I think it's time for Russia to wake up and embrace the reality of what is going on around them. And I think it's time for all of us to be woke. And woke meaning we care about other people, we're willing to put our taxes in a common pot and divvy them up and help all people, as many as we can, with a common tax base that we use. And no one should be able to dodge taxes or avoid it or seek tax havens. No country should be allowed to shelter proceeds from business operations in third countries and shelter it away from paying taxes in the country that goods are manufactured or services provided in. There should be no tax avoidance. And if I have to pay it, gosh darn it, so should the wealthy. And that's my view on taxing the rich. Yeah, everybody should pay something. I know, my good friend Jim, you're squirming in your seat saying, no, the rich are entitled to it because after all, they put up the risks, and with the risk comes the rewards. And to some extent, you're right. And I would argue there's the point of discussion. To what extent are they able to take the risk and take the rewards? And to what extent are they dodging responsibility if they don't pay taxes? Yeah, grease the palms. Yeah, the good old expression of graft and corruption. What about making money off of false election fraud claims? Trump's being investigated now. Allegations of fraud. Greasing the palms. It's corruption, however you spell it. Whether it's RUSSIA or TRUMP, or maybe you have another name for corruption. Spell it out on the Jim and Terry Show. Bye-bye for now.